Damn, this year is getting packed already, and we are only in March. I had a few items I was looking forward to, as well as a few that surprised me, and some new projects I was not expecting to enjoy or want to consume, but that's why I make these lists, and that is why I do these media reviews. So let's dive into what March has to offer. Bong Joon-ho knows what he is doing, and that is clear from this movie, which was very, very good. The whole concept of expendables and clones serving as a metaphor for the value of life made this film a really interesting watch. I loved how it explored a lot more nuance in the sci-fi genre that we haven't seen in a while. The concept of a colony having to ration their food in order to be able to survive was genius. Robert Pattinson is showing some real range here that we haven't seen from him in a while, with how each different Mickey is portrayed, and the contrast between 17 and 18 was appreciated. This movie was also really funny in places. Nasha in particular brought much of that, as did Mark Ruffalo's villain, very, very clearly parodying some current politicians, as well as being very, very funny. The production design of this movie as well is incredible. The dirty and grimy interior mixed with the white exterior, the very industrial, sterile environments added so many more layers to this whole thing. And the message, the way June describes the idea of life, death, karma, the value of human life, all through the perspective of Mickey, is so profound. And the message is not hidden. It is very, very direct and very surface level throughout the entire film, which is something I can see throwing people off, but also people complain when the message is too deep, so who cares? But for me, this message is such an important one to tell. Seeing the way Mickey gets treated by others, how they treat him as expendable, as a test subject, and have no regard for his feelings when asking about his many deaths. You see in the way people behave around him what June is portraying, and the narration from Robert/Mickey, which would normally be quite jarring, adds a lot more layers to Mickey's internal thought process, which really helps grind home this message about life. And all of the actors are doing an incredible job, both those who are villainous and those who are good, as even those on the good side of this moral dilemma have growth in understanding both the world, Mickey, the importance of life, and finally understanding how absolutely dumb Mark Ruffalo is. Seriously, all of the performances and story around Mark Ruffalo's character is hilarious, and it is so satisfying to see him go down in the perfectly comic way. And the award for most adorable alien design so far. These little/big pillbug creatures were very adorable, except for that one scene, and voiced very, very well. Once again, the design of this film in all aspects is on point. Mickey 17 is a fantastic original creation with some very real, deep messages about life, wrapped up in some stellar design. And I look forward to Junho's next project because he is clearly another master of the craft of filmmaking.
Flows. We gotta get the fish, 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 fish. So let's go and be gone. So let's go and be gone. So let's go and be gone. So let's go. Now we know, 'cause when the going gets too, that means it's time to get lost. When the going gets too, that means it's time to get lost. So let go, now we down, 'cause we know.
A Plankton musical origin movie was kind of okay. The SpongeBob movies have kind of gone downhill since the pandemic, and this one looks about the same as the previous ones, though it does have a lot more dynamic movement. But the music is good, and the voice actors can sing, which shouldn't be surprising since the show. I still wish they had included a nod to the SpongeBob musical, especially when the going gets tough. One of my favorite songs from the musical. Also, SpongeBob is not the title character, and did not need to be in the movie nearly as much as he was. I appreciate the nod to Sponge out of water with him helping Plankton grow, but he doesn't need to be in it that much to be effective. Once again, he is not the title character of this movie. The origin story of Karen and Plankton was a cool original idea, and it was nice for Plankton to get some karma again after his many actions in the show. It was a sweet little story that is resolved kind of in a dumb way, and also, Plankton gets emotions for about 5 seconds when it is relevant and important to the story, and nowhere else. As for the rest of the usual SpongeBob cast, it is an unfortunate factor of the show that when the rest of them are not as central to the story as usual, they really have nothing to do other than be annoying or interrupt the story just for the sake of being included, and it takes away from an actually decent story that they have here. I am not alone. I hope in being interested in an origin story for Plankton. The SpongeBob musical proved that a full musical version of the show and the story could work, and the show has proven time and time again that all the voice actors are very, very talented singers. So all of this put together should produce a fantastic little SpongeBob film that does what Sandy Cheeks couldn't do, add more to the show by building up the character of one of its major stars, and it tries to do that and succeeds about 60% of the time. And don't get me wrong, I had fun with some of the show, and especially with the songs since I'm a musical fan, but there were a few elements that meant it struggled to really be the smash hit it had the potential to be. Now, I know this is based on a very well drawn and very good book, which I have not read, so I cannot speak to the accuracy, which I have heard is a lot more thoughtful and adventurous than the action heavy style of this movie, and for that, I agree, it is not great. Changing a fundamental view of a story is not a strong start. However, the thing I love about this film is the design, especially the robots. The variety in the designs of all the robots and the variety in their purposes, the way they are dirty, the way they are broken or busted, the way they move, the way they sound is all so well designed, not surprising for the Russo brothers, and the collection of voice actors for these robots was impressive, from Brian Cox to Woody Harrelson to Anthony Mackie, who was my favorite because he's clearly have such a blast as Herm, who is such a great character. Ke Huy Quan is also good in this. He has some good range from PC to the Doctor in his emotional range. Chris Pratt and Millie do have good chemistry, but are both a little too annoying to really make me feel anything for them. Millie's brother is much more emotionally full as a character, and his impact on the story is also much more significant. There is a lot more about this film I like, mostly stemming from its message, but there is also a lot that is not great. Stanley Tucci's generic billionaire evil character is well performed. I mean, it's Stanley Tucci, but the character is not given enough time to really be interesting enough, especially with his backstory. Giancarlo's character needed more time as well, because it's clear that there's something there with how his story ends, but I wanted more from him. Millie and Chris really drag the story down with how uninteresting and underdeveloped they are, because we are given very little, like many of the characters who aren't robots, to really connect with them. The message about technology, our overuse slash over reliance on it, as well as the message about, once again, life is interesting, if, especially the tech one, not very nuanced, but a story like this is never going to be nuanced in its presentation of its very, very clear message. I don't know, this film had a lot going for it, but it missed a lot of very key marks that it needs to elevate it beyond the genericism that drags it down, which may have been the case had they stuck to how the book was told, as usual. I'm a goofy goober! You're a goofy goober! We're all goofy goobers! Goofy, 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 goofy! Nonsensical animated movie plots are wildly different in how they are perceived, and a lot of it has to do with how the animation keeps up. Looney Tunes, by nature of its name, is probably the best IP to attempt this with, since, well, one, most Looney Tunes plots are nonsensical, and two, the animation being so fluid and all over the place really helps sell these stories. This is what makes this movie so damn good, because the way the animation embodying much of the old style, actually, with some modern touches, really moves so fluidly and well with the over-the-top plot, with all the various slapstick and dumb humor, really makes it so much more enjoyable than the other nonsensical plots. Watching this incredibly dumb story plot play out amongst the flailing limbs, references, jokes, and slapstick was such a vibrant delight for a film, and really shows what Looney Tunes are capable of. It was nice to see. It was a nice return to much of the old ways of Looney Tunes, since the Looney Tunes show kind of turned down the classic slapstick. Taking away Bugs Bunny proved to be a good move as Daffy and Porky have such a good dynamic with each other, and the new character made up for the lack of Bugs' classic quips. And hey, Daffy is significantly less annoying in this movie, unlike the Looney Tunes show, where he is easily the most annoying and uninteresting character, getting to Sheldon Big Bang Theory level vibes. But here, he is so much more endearing and much more entertaining to watch, and that was in part due to Eric Bowles' voice acting, but also his relationship with Porky, explored in a sweet but also hilarious opening. I had a lot of fun with this movie. It was entertaining, funny, and just a really fun time. And hey, history being made with the first Looney Tunes fully animated film.
Alexander is my name, Macedonia's most famous commander. History calls the great, but I prefer the greatest. A king aged only 20 when my dad assassinated. Advisors called for calm, but frankly peace is overrated. Crushed rebels in Greek city-states, sold thousands of the martyrs, made short labor of my neighbors, and that was just for starters.
A new retelling of a classic Australian story had potential to be something I enjoyed. And I did. Most of the time. There were definitely some very funny moments across the movie, which was surprisingly well paced. The various set changes with the interior of the van, the interior of the house, the locations were all very well put together, and the composition really held to the family dynamic. Family dynamics are hard to get right, where they either feel too argumentative or not very connected. This family lay in the middle. They had their arguments, their banter, the cliche family tropes, but they also did care about each other. The grandparents are easily the best part. Cheech Marin is hilarious, but the rest of the family are kind of generic, which isn't bad. I just feel like I wanted more from them that wasn't the cliches that we normally get on movies like this. I did like the side character appearances, the skunk segment. There was a whole lot about this movie I enjoyed. It just didn't hit above the bar that it could have done, given the whole concept of the movie. Outside of the classic story about rising above bad luck and gaining a positive attitude on life, this movie has a story about family heritage and rediscovering that heritage, which it is about, but it only really comes back in the very last few minutes of the movie, and the message gets drowned out by the quips, the jokes, and the comedy. I really wanted to like this movie. I love the original movie as well as the original book as an Australian, but it was hard to ignore how it was generic and letting its message get drowned out by comedy. There was no nuance to where nuance would have helped really lift it above the bar of mid-tier that it is established, and unfortunate disappointment with some good qualities.
Told her another day as she fades away, never daring to disobey, so she's dreaming all alone, sharing secrets with a stone. My father told me long ago I braved a bitter storm of snow. Is that a girl I'll ever know again? I'm waiting on a wish beneath 1,000 treetops, and as the silver sky stops.
I never really liked the original, so I did not care for this movie in any way, shape, or form. But my word, this movie is bad. The only thing that saves it is the songs. Even the new ones are pretty decent, but not the best in comparison to the rest of Disney. The costumes are good, at least. The thing that makes this movie so bad, the big thing that is one, the CGI, or more the overuse of it. It's nothing against the artists who had to make it, they are doing the best with what they got, but when it's so obvious that the animals are CGI, that's when it is clear it was an overuse to a massive extent. On top of that, dwarves look ugly, like Uncanny Valley ugly, which is so hard to look at. The voice acting for them is pretty good, but my word, are they so ugly to look at. It's like they stretched human skin over garden gnomes. It's just so uncomfortable. Gal Gadot is not very good as the Queen. Her acting a lot of the time is pretty flat, and here it is basically the same. Her singing is okay. The other thing that irks me to no end is when this movie was first being talked about, they didn't cast little people as the dwarves, and then decided to go the full CGI route. But there is a little person in this movie as one of the rebels. Why? Why is that the line that's drawn? Why? Just why? It's so mind-boggling and it's so annoying. The other thing is Gal Gadot is the evil queen, a character who's supposed to be jealous of Snow White's beauty. Eh? There are a lot of problems with this movie, a lot, and I could spend hours talking about them. But I have other way more interesting stuff to get to, so I'll just say that for all the glitz and glamour that this movie has, for all the ways this movie could have been altered to fit with modern audiences, for all the potential a movie like this could have had given the success of Beauty and the Beast, they had made every possible decision in the wrong direction to make a successful live action adaptation of the classics, to make a half decent movie. If this is the worst movie of the year, then thank God, because I really hope it doesn't get much worse than this.
So small when I know I'm young, but life's a song that must be sung. Destiny, she beats her drum. All for love, all for love. As a child, my dad told me of a song made from a tree.
I had a lot of high expectations for this film. The whole concept, the vibe, the aesthetic, and visuals all looked amazing, and the trailer really showed it to be this epic musical sci-fi dystopian adventure. Now, the movie did hit some of those expectations, mostly with the visuals and the music. The color grading, the landscapes, the set design, the clothing, the lighting, it's all amazing. It feels like such a combination of cyberpunk and rock music aesthetics, with even a little Tim Burton thrown in there to really add to this dark, gritty neon dystopia. As for the music, every single song in this movie slaps. From the early country ballads in the first act to the more pop punk ballads, to the love ballads and the techno, it all fits so well within the vibe. And the singing from Kelvin Harrison Jr. and Sadie Sink was incredible. They are both so incredibly talented in this movie. And there are 16 original songs in this movie, and each one feels unique and equally powerful and moving. Particularly the song at the end and Kelvin's song. The vibes of this movie, the aesthetic, and the music feel really like a sci-fi rock opera, something I haven't seen before and something not normally made today, and I loved it. It was such a cool, visually stunning movie with music that elevated those visuals so well. The plot is surprisingly original given the whole concept. It combines a lot of other ideas into one about music and prophecy freeing people from oppression through an entertainer, and to give them hope in a world that's dying. It's a very thoughtful and well put together idea. However, it does take a while for it to reach that point, as a lot of focus is on Odessa's journey and her relationship with Yuri, which is so sweet and a little tragic at the end, which does drag away from us learning a little bit more about the villain and the world. I think this movie could have been an extra 15 minutes longer to add some extra world-building elements to fully integrate the story, as though the villain does have a bit of charisma, he's a little one-note and flat, and we don't learn everything about him until the very end of the movie. We don't really know, we have to infer why he has the power he does. We don't understand how he was able to get to the position he is. Understanding the villain is as important to the story as understanding the protagonist. For all the visual beauty, the songs, and the talent from Sadie Sink, this movie needs elevation and a few more foundational elements to really reach through its style. It's another unfortunate case of style over substance. Even though that style is immaculate and energetic and vibrant, I could watch this film again for the visuals, but it needed more story. The whole concept of this was enough to get me invested, and I was not let down with the designs of the Yakuza Justice League, and with the designs of the Bat Family. The Yakuza League was so cool with the way that they were a mashup of their original designs with Japanese and anime influence, seen very clearly in Harley Quinn's design. Wonder Woman was cool, Aquaman was cool, seeing Jessica Cruz as the primary Green Lantern in a DC project was cool, glad she's getting some time to shine, especially before the Lantern series. The Flash was cool, Superman was terrifying, and the designs, my god, I was so happy. I also liked how they changed the names to fit with Japan, and the history felt very Japanese. The voice acting varies largely, from Batman's monotonous growl to Diana's much more nuanced performance. Flash was quite entertaining to watch with his much more over-the-top and chaotic attitude. Ra's al Ghul is always a very fun villain and an entertaining combatant against Batman, both in intellect and physical skill. The way they incorporated the lore of the last movie into this one was very interesting. The four Bat family members were fun and at least a little different, which was good since at times they were very little other than designed to really distinguish between them. The whole science ninja skills thing was interesting, if a little weird, but hey, Disco Wing was a thing for about 5 seconds, so that was fun. As for the animation, the visuals were surprisingly strong, since similar styles to this have been very rigid and static, but given it's Japanese animators, they nailed the action with the style really well, especially with the powers of the various Yakuza League members, as well as the Bat family's own combat, was very good. They used their budget wisely to make the action scenes feel as impactful as possible, while still letting the normal scenes have some movement so it's not just figures standing there for 5 minutes. As for the artwork and the backgrounds, they are on point. They are beautiful. They feel authentic to both Gotham and very stylized Japan. There is a bit of madness in the animation, in the action, and in the whole concept, but that's what makes it both fun and entertaining to watch. However, there was one thing that I did not like in this film, and it was the Joker. He was there for 5 minutes and added nothing of value to the movie. Harley Quinn was slightly more entertaining, but it's Harley Quinn. To me, she's always entertaining, especially this anime style one. The design was so cool. Japan really has a lot of creativity when it comes to their own take on Western media compared to our own takes on theirs, and seeing how they stylize and tweak these designs showcases a real love for these IPs. I had a lot of fun with this movie, even with the few things I wasn't the biggest fan of, because the concept is so mad and so epic. I loved it. We are so back, baby. Marvel is back. Daredevil is back, and it kicked all of the ass in New York. So much skepticism went into the early days of this series, but everyone who worked on it proved everyone wrong with how insane it was. Daredevil brought the Netflix show back to life, supported by a few touch-ups with CGI in spectacular fashion. The performances from Charlie Cox and Vincent are on point as they lead a new cast of characters, as well as some returning faces, through this brilliantly written story. The dialogue and performances were incredible. 9 episodes will never be enough Daredevil, but they cooked hard with this. The fight scenes are as good as ever, with episodes 1, 6, and of course 9 having some of the best. On top of that, going back to the performances, there are some fantastic moments here. The best, of course, coming from Jon Bernthal's return as the Punisher in spectacular and bloody fashion. And this show did not hold back on the violence either. The emotion of the Netflix series is there as well, with what happened in episode 1, with what happened to Hector Ayala, rest in peace Camar de los Reyes, and a ton more. Michael Gandolfini and many other supporting actors proved to be a fantastic and terrifying new addition to the story, and hey, it's Yusuf Khan! The cinematography is as good as the Netflix show. It has got a bit more budget being a Disney show, technically, and it shows in some amazing and breathtaking, tense, downright insane shots that just builds even more layers. The storyline on this show took some time to come to full fruition, but when it did, I went mad. The shock I had when they revealed it was a Devil's Reign storyline was insane, and I loved it. This storyline has become one of the most insane and crazy stories ever, and it leaves a lot of opportunity for new and old characters to come together to fight off Kingpin, who played everyone, by the way. Muse was a fun side villain, who I certainly hope is not done, as well as Bullseye returning for an insane moment. Daredevil is Marvel's magnum opus and is the rebirth that they needed. They had been building and building, and now Daredevil is going to be an insane show, especially with what Season 2 and hopefully future seasons are going to have to explore and deal with. Marvel has been born again, and I'm so stoked. This is the show I was waiting for, and I was not disappointed.
Perhaps this final act was meant to clinch a lifetime's argument, that nothing comes from violence, and nothing ever could. For all those born beneath an angry star, lest we forget how fragile we are.
Wow. This show was something different, and one of the best shows I have ever seen. First of all, the complexities and the work that went into crafting each episode for the long takes was very, very impressive. Especially with how complex some of the movements get, it is a really, really impressive what they did. as well as the way the actors work with the movement of the camera, and it feels surprisingly natural. The other effect this camera work really has is amplifying the tension. But not cutting away, we remain in the moment and inside the very, very tense scenes. We really do not get a time to breathe in this show, and it shows by how heavy it is and how impactful every moment felt. All of the actors in this show are phenomenal, showcasing such great emotion from the young actor playing Jamie, who has a bright future ahead of him, to Stephen Graham's brilliantly emotional performance. Both of them are these standouts in this show. They both do so much of the work to add the emotion and heartbreaking layers to the show. It all works so incredibly well and adds so many more layers to an already incredible show. The emotion is intense, it is heavy, it is brutal. This is probably one of the most brutal shows I've ever watched. I'm still processing what happened because it was so heartbreaking. Seeing the show's take on incel culture, the effects of social media on children, and some very difficult lessons about growing up and adolescence of the show's title that really do need to be addressed in our society, and the performances really serve to showcase why. This is not a who done it, it's a why done it. Seeing the breakdown of the family, of Jamie, of the people involved in the case by the nature of what has happened, leading to a final episode, perhaps the most brutal of them all. Showcasing the suffering of the family, leading to Stephen Graham's heartbreaking final scene. Adolescence is a masterpiece, a true, brutal masterpiece.
We walk the footsteps of our fathers, trailblazed by our mothers. They bought the land with their blood, long ago, long ago. Sing
Now onto something a bit more positive. Wheel of Time's improvement over its 3 seasons should be studied, because it is impressive how well they have managed to adapt this series and improve. Season 3 is definitely some of the best of the show, not only in the plot feeling much more intense and active, but also in the characters. My previous grievances with these characters have disappeared, and I'm now super invested in these stories. Episode 4 and 7 were the best episodes of the show so far, with the Battle of the Two Rivers being hands down one of the best fantasy battles I have seen for a while. On top of that, Perrin's journey and growth has been the best to watch. Rand's journey and the stuff with the Aiel was so super fun to watch and gave this season a fantastic ending. The Battle of the Tower, Liandrin's story, the final fight, Swan's speech, Loyal's sacrifice, and so many other events just elevated the season to a new height that the show has not hit yet. And now that we are here, I am super, super invested. The VFX, set, and costume design are all on point and some of the best I have seen in fantasy shows for a while. I will say that whilst the pacing has gotten better, especially with the over hour-long episodes, you do feel the length of this season and how it ends a little, but nevertheless, I am still hyped for what is next, which does seem to be what they were intending. Wheel of Time has been scratching an itch for a generally good and well-rounded fantasy show, with a unique world and concept that continues to get better as the seasons go on, something you don't see often in the world of fantasy television. I have been super invested in this story, and I hope it continues because it seems there is a lot happening, and some even bigger and crazy battles to come in the next installments of the show.
in the face, it's like staring at a burning sun. Got teeth like razor blades, and you know that we're out for blood. We're out for blood. Better run, better run. Here it comes, here it comes. Better run, better run. Who's coming out to play?
I did not know what to expect from this show, only knowing it was based on a book series, but the new stylized and unique animation and a very interesting premise drew me into what became a much darker fantasy story than I was expecting for what was classified as a more kids-oriented animation. There were so many turns where this show could have gone in a very generic fantasy, but it didn't, particularly in the way that they handled the relationship between Drew and Gretchen. The darker tone of this story really helped sell this to me, because where it could have been a lot of stupid, dumb jokes, it really honed in on its drama and its emotions and its story, leaving a few jokes in the story mostly through the banter between the characters who had a really strong chemistry for a group of teenagers, and the banter felt realistic, not forced or anything. The show just has really simple choices that really make this story something strong. As for the story itself, the whole concept of a world ruled by werepeople is so freaking cool. Like the bears, the lions, and the sharks is such a cool concept, and the conflict, the emotional beats with Drew's family, the Bear Lord's family, the political machinations, and the frustrations were very, very strong in telling us this story. As for the animation, the style looked like a much more smooth stop motion, and with some really cool designs for the creatures, for the cities and the landscapes, as well as the beasts and the people themselves. The art style also served for some really great and some pretty dynamic movement, which is helpful in a story with a lot of fast moving creatures and combat. Also, Patterson Joseph and Ralph Ineson carried the voice acting in this show hard. It's all good, but these two killed it. Patterson portraying the gruff and stern Bearlord was fantastically, showcasing some elements of emotion through the gruffness, which is a factor of the world and the events around it. Ralph Ineson as the fearsome King Leopold was superb, with such a deep voice that is terrifying, with a subtle growl hinting at his ability. I really want this to get a season 2 because I love the story and its world, and it is clear there is a lot more to do in this world and a much larger, potentially darker story, and I really hope it gets a chance to shine. Oh boy, this month was already jam-packed, and we still got more to come as the year kicks into gear hard and fast. I am looking forward to it though, as the next few months offer up some of my most anticipated projects of the year, as well as some new and exciting originals that I look forward to exploring in these coming months. But my word, I'm going to be swamped.